Good evening, everyone. I'm Rakhi Gautam from greytHR, the moderator for the session today. We are delighted to have you join us for the second episode of the PSP Parichay webinar series by greytHR. Thanks to everyone for taking out the time. Now, before we dive into the topic, I would like to quickly take you all through the agenda. So the session is divided into two parts. The first part will be the presentation by our expert, which will be then followed by an audience Q&A. So the audience Q&A is where time is all yours, dear attendees. You can start putting across your questions, in fact, from now, and we will take them up towards the end. Also, the session is currently being recorded. So if you happen to miss out on anything, do not worry at all. We have got you covered. We will share the recording with you once it is done. And also, the session will be available on our greytHR YouTube official channel. So you can always go back there and watch it. Now, without any further delay, let's start the session. The topic for today is payroll compliance in India, best practices and pitfalls. Today, we will navigate through India's legal frameworks and regulations when it comes to payroll compliances and also discover cutting-edge technology solutions designed to streamline compliance management. And to decode all of that and share his insights, joining us today is CA Vishal Khandhar, Managing Director, RMV and Associates LLP. Now, let me quickly take you all through our speaker's profile. CA Vishal Khandhar is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India since 2012. He provides end-to-end services to clients from the manufacturing sector and service industry. He's currently the managing partner at RMV and Associates LLP and manages the accountancy and payroll services of various clients along with internal accounting and payroll of the firm. He also assists clients in compliance matters with regards to goods and services tax, income tax, ROC, etc. He's also worked with QX Group, where he looked after all the compliance matters related to direct and indirect tax. Once again, I welcome you, Vishal, and thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited for the session.
Thank you.
Now, as promised, dear participants, I would now like to hand over the session to our speaker, Vishal, who will take us through his presentation, highlighting all the key points that we are going to discuss today on compliance management. Over to you, Vishal.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Rakhi and greytHR team for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic, which is important in today's corporate world. This topic is equally important for all the payroll service providers, as we as a payroll service providers would like to provide the quality service to our client. And for that, we need to follow the best practices. So now let's discuss today's agenda. I'll be discussing on best practices for payroll compliance. What are why payroll compliance is important? What are the legal frameworks and regulations overview? And the technology solutions for compliance management. So moving to the best practices. The first and the most important point is use of reliable payroll software. Some organizations as well as some payroll service providers uses Excel along with the formulas to do the payroll as well as tax calculation. They do so for eliminating the cost of purchasing the payroll software. But according to me, it is not a best practice because there are chances of errors in Excel. We can do the payroll in Excel for 15 to 20 employees, but beyond that, it is advisable to purchase the payroll software and that to a reliable payroll software, because there are few softwares which are not accurate and there are a lot of bugs in it. But we need to purchase a reliable payroll software which provides the output files of salary registers, tax calculations accurately. The next is maintaining the accurate records of employees. So once we have the payroll software with us, we need to maintain all the documents of our employees, starting from copy of PAN card, copy of Aadhaar card, the employees' educational documents, then the cancelled check which is required to credit their salaries in their bank account. Even the previous employer pay slips, we need to upload it. So these all documents are required because as and when we require those documents for a particular employee, we can easily get from a payroll software. The next is statutory compliance training. So we as a payroll service provider as well as the organization should have a weekly meeting with our team so that we can pass on our knowledge to our team members, and if any training is required, we can do the training on weekly basis so that we can do the payroll process very accurately and without any errors. Framing the HR policies. So in organization, there are various HR policies like leave policy, then maternity policy, paternity leave policy, even the advances and loans of employees, the policy related to advance and loans of employees. Sometimes it may happen that employee who has joined the organization is unaware about this policy because during the induction, these are not being shared with the employees. Even employee doesn't have access to these policies. So as a best practice, organization should upload these policies on the payroll software so that it is accessible to all the employees and all the employees are aware about those policies. Once the monthly payroll is done, before paying the compliance such as TDS, PF, and ESIC, we need to get the payroll files audited with the third party in the same organization. The reason behind this is that if there is any error, it can be corrected at that time only, and correct TDS payment, ESIC, and PF payment is done after that. So regular audit is necessary. This is one of the most important point of handling employees' queries. In an organization, once the monthly payroll is done and the pay slips are emailed to the employees, various queries are starts coming to the payroll department. So in that, if there are more employees in the organization, it is advisable to have a dedicated employee who can solve all the queries of the employees, and and there should be a turnaround time. Means the queries should be solved within a specified period, and there should be a clear communication to the employee, and also the prompt response should be there so that the employees can get satisfaction about their queries. We have to stay updated with the all latest laws. As we all know that there are frequently the laws are getting changed, and we all should, as a payroll service provider, we all should attend the seminars as well as webinars to get ourselves updated, and we should see that the payroll software is also getting updated once the laws are finalized and are approved by the government. Payroll compliance checklist and calendar should be there. Means payroll team or a payroll service provider should have the SOPs of the payroll process, so that if any employee from the payroll team leaves the organization, the new employee can take on the responsibility by referring those SOPs, and should have a due date calendar also, so that none of the due dates are missed by the payroll department and the organization, such as TDS. The due date of TDS is 7th of every month. The due date of ESIC and PF is 15th of every month. So these due dates should be there so that it do not get missed. Also in the payroll software, the payroll team as well as the payroll service provider should get the notification that this is the due date, which this is the compliance which is getting due tomorrow. So that they can do the compliance on time. So this is the ideal CTC structure, which is there in every organization. It should be there in every organization. The first is the basic salary. So as you all know that the wage code is coming in near future. In that, the basic salary is 50% of CTC. Then HRA, house rent allowance. House rent allowance should be 40% of basic in case of non-metro cities and 50% in case of metro cities. For claiming the allowances of house rent, one should submit the rent agreement or the rent slips of 12 months. And if the annual rent is more than 1 lakh, then PAN of landlord is mandatory in case of house rent allowance. So if for claiming the exemption of house rent allowance, the list of the following should be taken taken care. That is 40% of basic, actual house rent allowance, and then paid minus 10% of basic. The least of these three should be given exemption. In case of leave travel allowance, there is no real benchmark, but ideally it should be 10% of basic. Leave travel allowance we can claim the leave travel allowance by submitting the air tickets, railway tickets, bus tickets, and it has a calendar block of 4 years. So employee can claim twice leave travel allowance in a block of 4 years. So for claiming the leave travel allowance, employee should see that the leave report should be there and he should have traveled within India. The next is special allowance. So this component is the balancing component in the CTC. Statutory bonus. Statutory bonus is applicable to those employees whose basic plus DA is 21,000 or less. So 8.33% of basic is the statutory bonus, which is minimum bonus, and maximum is 20% of basic. Employer PF contribution. Employer PF contribution is 12% of basic plus DA. It is restricted to 1800. ESIC employer contribution. It is 3.5% of gross salary if gross salary is up to 21,000. And the last is gratuity. So it is 4.81% of basic. And it is only those employees who has completed 5 years can get gratuity. So now we come across why the payroll compliance is important. The first and the foremost point is transparency and trust. So doing accurate payroll and within time, it brings trust, motivation, as well as job satisfaction among the employees. And it will create a positive work environment in the organization. The same goes with the payroll service provider. If there is transparency and trust in the client is satisfied that the payroll has been done within the time and that too accurate payroll. So the payroll accuracy of payroll compliance is must. Second one is legal obligation. We should be aware that while doing the payroll, all the laws and compliances are taken care of. Because if we miss any of the laws and compliance, it may result to fines and penalties. The third one is employee retention. If employee is confident enough that his payroll queries are being answered and payroll is being credited in the bank on time, then it will create a self of motivation and employee can be retained in the organization. But if the payroll is not done on time and if there are a lot of errors and the employee's queries are not solved, then there are chances that the employee may leave the organization and attrition ratio may also increases in the organization. The next is social securities. So those employees who has ESIC as well as PF in the CTC get medical benefit by submitting the ESIC card in the approved ESIC hospital. And in case of PF, they can withdraw the amount at the time of taking, if they want loan, or at the time of marriage, or at the time of education of their children. Taxation compliance. So this is one of the most important thing. I have seen in many organizations as well as few payroll service providers also that didn't deduct TDS on time for the employees. They deduct the TDS at the time of submitting the actual declarations in during January to March. But this is not the correct way of doing it. We should deduct TDS starting from the April itself by collecting the tentative tax declaration from the employees. And on the basis of tentative tax declaration, we need to deduct monthly TDS if the taxable income of employee exceeds the chargeable income under the income tax. So if we deduct monthly TDS on the basis of tentative declaration, then from January to March, when we are collecting the actual tax declaration and actual proof from the employees, we can deduct the tax on the basis of the actual proof at the time in January, February, and March. As I discussed earlier, that if we do not comply regularly and if we do not do the payroll, all the payroll compliance on time, it may lead to penalties and it also will lead to legal disputes. So we need to eliminate legal disputes by doing all the payroll compliance on time. So now we move on to legal framework. The first is ESIC. ESIC is applicable to those organizations in which employees are 10 or more. So for a particular employee, if gross salary is up to 21,000, ESIC is applicable. ESIC contribution are of two types, employer ESIC and employee ESIC. Employer ESIC is 3.25% of gross and employee ESIC is 0.75% of gross. So one should keep in mind that if the gross salary of employee increases from 21,000, then he should be out of ESIC. But during October and April, for example, in March, if employee's gross salary is 21,000, and if he gets increment as 30,000 in the month of May, but then also we should continue deducting the ESIC till September, and he should be out of ESIC from October onwards. The next is Employee Provident Fund. This is applicable, PF is applicable in case of organizations having 20 or more employees. Mandatory PF is applicable to those employees who already have the universal account number or whose gross basic plus DA is less than 15,000. And if those employees who do not have the universal account number or whose basic plus DA is more than 15,000, then PF is not mandatory. So there are two types of contribution: employer contribution to PF, which is bifurcated into two parts, that is EPS, which is 8.33%, and employer PF, which is 3.67%. Employees contribution to PF is 12%, and there is admin and EDLI charges of 0.5% each on basic plus DA. Employees contribution to PF is eligible for deduction under section 80C up to 1,50,000 rupees. The next is Labor Welfare Act. The Labor Welfare Fund is a fund that is being contributed by the employee, and in few states it is also contributed by the government. Different states has different Labor Welfare Act. So in Gujarat, the labor welfare to be paid for per employee is 18 rupees, and out of that, employees' contribution is 6 rupees, and employers' contribution is 12 rupees. This is paid 6 monthly. From January to June, it is paid on 15th July, and from July to December, it is paid on 15th of January. Then the next is Payment of Gratuity Act. So under Gratuity Act, those employees who are for who have served the organization for 5 years for particular organization, in that case they are eligible for gratuity. So the calculation of gratuity is the last drawn salary into 15 divided by 26. So at a rate of 15 days wages based on the rate of wages of last drawn by the employee concerned. So even, for example, if an employee in a particular organization is working for 5 years and 7 months, so we need to take 6 years for gratuity calculation. In gratuity, the deduction is up to 20 lakhs for a particular employee. The next is Payment of Wages Act. Under this act, it is said that what is the last date for the payment of salary of a particular month. If the number of employees are more than 1,000 in a particular organization, then the due date for the payment of salary is 10th. Before that, they have to make the payment of salary. And if the number of employees are less than 1,000, then the due date is 7th of next month. So every organization need to see that the payroll is done on time and before these due dates. Minimum Wages Act. Under this act, it is mentioned that the basic pay of a particular employee should be minimum should be of minimum amount. For example, in Gujarat, the skilled employee, the per day is rupees 474. So, for example, if a particular employee is joining the organization, then 474 multiplied by 26. So that should be the minimum basic pay of that employee. And different states have different basic pay, and this changes every 6 months. The next is Payment of Bonus Act. So statutory bonus is applicable to those employees where the wages are up to 21,000 per month and they are engaged in any work, whether skilled, unskilled, managerial, and supervisory. So suppose if a particular employee's gross salary is up to 20, basic salary is up to 21,000, then there should be a statutory bonus component in its CTC, and it should be minimum 8.33% of basic and maximum 20% of basic. But if the basic is more than 21,000, then statutory bonus component is not required. Maternity Benefit Act. So under this act, this is applicable to the female employees in where they get 26 weeks leave, maternity leave, and these leaves are the paid leaves. Means even when they are on maternity leave, the salaries are paid to them. Under this maternity benefit as out of 26 weeks of maternity leave, 8 weeks should be before childbirth and 18 weeks should be after childbirth. The next is superannuation fund. So this is the fund which is created by the organization for the retirement benefit of the employees. Under the superannuation fund, the employer creates the trust and contributes up to 15% of basic plus DA in that fund. Employee can voluntarily contribute to that fund, and employee's contribution is eligible for ATC up to 1,50,000 rupees. If during the employment, employee withdraws from superannuation fund, that is taxable under the head income from other sources. Once the employee is retired, then he can withdraw 1/3 of the total contribution, and that is exempt from tax. And the rest is being transferred to pension account. So here, if employer contributes to a trust, that expense is deductible from income tax point of view to the organization. And if employee contributes, that is eligible under section 80C. The next is leave engagement. So any paid leaves which are unutilized, and if the employee leaves the organization, in that case, the employee is eligible for leave encashment, and that is maximum up to 25 lakhs. Leave encashment issued by the government employee is fully exempt, but in case of private employee, the three conditions are mentioned. That is amount received as leave encashment, the maximum amount as stated by the government, which is 25 lakhs, the last 10 months of basic salary and DA, and salary per day into unutilized leave, which is maximum up to 30 days for every year of completed service. So list of the above should be taken as exemption in case of leave encashment. The next is NPS. So this is also a retirement benefit plan, same as superannuation fund. And here the employee can get the deduction in three ways. The first is under 80 CCD1, where employee can contribute 10% of their basic under NPS, and they can claim the exemption up to 1,50,000 rupees. If employee voluntarily contributes in NPS under section 80 CCD 1B, then over and above 1,50,000 employees eligible for claiming deduction of rupees 50,000. In case of 80 CCD2, employer contributes 10% of basic, and that is a part of it should be a part of CTC for a particular employee. Suppose the basic of particular employee is 80,000, and if employer contributes 10%, that is 8,000, then 8,000 should be the CTC part as employer is contributing. So under ETCCD2, this additional deduction is available to the employee, and that too over and above 1,50,000. In NPS, one can withdraw up to 25% during the employment from the NPS account, but the condition is that the employee should have contributed in the NPS account for a continuous period of 3 years. And after the employee gets retired, 60% of the total amount can be withdrawn by the employee, and remaining 40% it gets converted into the pension scheme. The amount 60% amount which is withdrawn is tax free, but the amount that is being converted into the pension scheme and every year the pension which is received after the retirement is taxable. Even the interest on NPS is tax free. So this is one of the most important retirement scheme. Even the rate of interest in NPS is 9 to 12%. Now we come to what are the technology solutions for payroll compliance. The first is cloud-based payroll software. So in this, if a particular organization purchases the payroll software, it should be cloud-based, because if the software is not cloud-based, then they would not be able to navigate the software from anywhere. So if it is cloud-based, they can access the software anywhere and at any time. Even there is no problem of backup if the software is cloud-based. The second is payroll mobile app. So every employee of the organization should be given the mobile app so that they can access their pay slips, tax documents, tax computation sheet, as well as they can apply for leave on that from the mobile app itself. They do not have to open the laptop and do all these things. So it is mobile app is very important for technology solutions. Then integration of payroll software with accounting software. So whenever any organization purchase the payroll software, it is important that they should see that this software is getting integrated with the accounting software or not. Because once the payroll is done and it gets finalized and the month is closed, and if the payroll software is integrated with the accounting software, then automatically the accounting entries get posted in the accounting software, and it reduces the time for doing the accounting of particular payroll entry. Data analysis for compliance reporting. If we purchase the cloud-based payroll software, we can extract various reports which are very important for doing the data analysis. And also the compliance such as PF, ESIC, TDS, all these reports are extracted from the payroll software, and we can check whether it is accurate or not. Employee self-service portal. So under this, the employee is given the self-service portal from where they can log in and they can apply for tax declaration. For first few months, they can do the tentative declaration, and so that the TDS is deducted accordingly. And for next few months, that is last 3 months, they can upload the actual documents as a tax declaration proof, and so that the TDS gets deducted accordingly. So in this self-service portal, employee can see all the things related to their payroll, and they can know that how much TDS will be going to deduct in future. Even the old scheme and the new scheme, that is in income tax, there are two types of scheme: old scheme and new scheme. Employee can select any of the scheme and also compare the tax in the software, that in which scheme is beneficial to the employee. Either it is old scheme is beneficial or new scheme is beneficial. Various tax tools for employees. So nowadays there are various tax tools which are coming. For example, HR. If employee want to see that what is the HRA exemption, he can mention all the details in the HRA tool and can get the figure of exemption. Even the income tax calculator is there, wherein the employee can enter all the details regarding the income, what are the deductions and all, and finally he can get the income tax calculation ready. So these all are the technology solutions for the compliance payroll management. So thank you, and we can take the questions.
Thank you so much, Vishal. I think it was very insightful. The presentation itself was very helpful. every point that we were aiming to cover, we did cover. And I can see already a few questions lined up. Also, audience, if you already haven't posted your question and you do have any questions, you can start putting them now. We will take them one by one. So Vishal, I'll just read out the first question to you, which is, please confirm for leaves encashment policy which has come.
Okay, so a couple of days back, there is one update about the leave encashment that the employees other than managers and supervisors, if their leaves are more than 30 in a particular year, then that leaves needs to be encashed to them. So this is not yet approved, but it has been presented before the government.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. If there's a follow-up question to that, please feel free to ask. The second question is from Ramesh Ravindranath. Good evening. This is Ramesh from Swarga Management Services. If my understanding is right, if the PF wage is more than 15,000, the employer contribution can be restricted to 1,800. Else, it has to be 12% of gross, HR and all variable components and not basic plus DA at 12%. This is as per Supreme Court ruling and not EPFO. Please correct me if this is incorrect, or just shed light on this.
Yeah, so if the gross minus HRA and other wages means if those are more than 15,000, then we can restrict the PF to 1,800 rupees. So in that case, employee as well as the employer PF would be 1,800. But if gross minus HRA is less than 15,000, then in that case we have to do 12% of gross minus HR. So I have mentioned basic plus DA. So in that case, all the components except HRA would be included.
Got it. I hope that clears the confusion, Ramesh. If there's a follow-up question, please do ask. Moving on to the third question, which is, hi, please tell whether contractual employees having 15,000 as salary can get EPF or not.
So those employees who are on contract and not on payroll, so in that case, they do not get the PF and ESIC because they are contractual employees and they are not on the payroll of the organization. If the employees are on the payroll, then definitely they are eligible for PF and ESIC, but that too, the limits which I have mentioned, that is in case of ESIC, if the gross is up to 21,000, then only they are eligible. And in case of PF, if it is less than 15,000.
Got it. Thank you, Vishal, with that insight. Moving on to the next question, which is from Ingrid. If UAN of employee did not have an EPS deduction under the previous employer, will that have an impact while remitting PF under current employer?
No, so suppose if the gross minus HRA is more than 15,000 and if the employee doesn't have EPS deduction, then in next organization also there would not be any EPS deduction. There would be only employer PF contribution.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Also, I see a few people raising their hand. So if you have a question, you can add that question in the Q&A option of the Zoom control panel that you can see on your screen. So there is an option that says ask a question. When you click on that, you will be able to type in your question. Okay, moving on to the next question, which is it compulsory to provide bonus to employees?
Yes, if the basic plus DA is less than 21,000, then it is mandatory to provide the bonus, and that to minimum 8.33% of basic and maximum 20% of basic.
Got it. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
So
Moving on.
that is the part of the compliance. If we do not do this compliance, then it is possible that we might have to pay with interest and penalty when audit comes from the government.
Yes, that is why it is very important to be very compliant when it comes to these things. Got it. Moving on to the next question, which is what is the process for filing and paying GST on employee benefits like employee transportation and canteen services?
So on that, GST doesn't come, it is exempt because if there is employer-employee relationship, it is exempt from GST. So if there is a canteen services, so in that we do not have to we cannot claim the credit in case of canteen services of employee.
Okay. Got it. Moving on to the next question, which is how often are we required to deduct and deposit PF contribution for our employees?
So it is every month. Every month we need to deduct the PF and we need to deposit before 15th.
Before 50.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, the next question is how can we handle and report any non-compliance issues or disputes that might arise within employees regarding payroll?
So as I mentioned that if there are any employees queries, it needs to be solved within the time frame that has been decided by the organization. Because if we do not solve those queries, then it might be possible that the employee feels that their queries are not being answered, and it is not an employee-centric organization. So it is important that the queries are being solved within a specific time. And if there is any non-compliance, and if that non-compliance is there in a particular month, then it needs to be corrected by doing the monthly audit.
Okay. I hope that definitely answers the question. Moving on to the next question, which is from Gopal Kashyap. If employee worked only 15 days in a month and employee wages more than 15,000, what should be the limit of PF deduction full month or only 15 days?
No, it will be if it is employees worked only 15 days and there is no leave balance. So 15 other 15 days would be the LWB. So in that case, the PF would be on 15 days only and not more than that. But if employee has the leave balance and if he has worked for 15 days, then the payroll would be done accordingly. Suppose the leave balance of employee is 30 leaves and he has worked only for 15 days and he has taken leaves of 15. So still he has a leave balance, so he should be paid for the whole month, and in that case, the whole month salary PF will be calculated.
I hope that answers the question for you. I think it was Gopal. Okay. Moving on to the next question from Guman Mahar. Is it mandatory to give employee leave encashment? And second question is it mandatory basic should be 50% of CTC?
So currently, basic, there is no specific limit that basic should be this much, but I have mentioned the basic as 50% of CTC because in near future there would be a wage code which is applicable, and in the wage code it is mentioned that basic should be 50% of CTC. So if we structure the CTC of all the employees, keeping in mind the wage code which is going to come in future, so it would be easy for us to do all the payroll compliances when there is a wage code. And the first question regarding the leave encashment is applicable on paid leaves only. If there is sick leaves, then that leaves get lapsed. On that, there would not be any leave encashment.
Got it. Thank you, Vishal. Moving on to the next question, which is from Nagendra K. In my previous employment, my basic salary was more than 15,000 and I'm not a member of EPS. However, if in next employer, my basic salary is less than 15,000, am I eligible for NPS? Yes or no?
NPS.
Yeah, it's written pension. So,
Okay,
is
it
it
would be, I
pension?
think, EPS. So suppose his
EPS.
salary was more than 15,000 in previous organization, there was no PF. And now he is in an organization in which organization is PF registered. And if basic is less than 15,000, then he is eligible for PF. But
Okay.
in case of EPS, that is Employee Pension Scheme, if the basic is more than 15,000, then in that case, EPS would not be eligible. But if it is less, then EPS is eligible. So in this case, EPS is also eligible as basic is less than 15.
Okay, got it. Moving on to the next question from Yagesh Sharma. Can minimum wages be bifurcated for the purpose of PF contribution?
No, in case of PF contribution, it is on gross minus HRA. So whatever the gross minus HRA amount is, on that we need to pay 12%.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, which is from Preeti. And the question is, she wants to know how TDS benefits employees.
Okay, so it is based on the income which you have. Suppose your income is up to 5 lakhs rupees, then in that case TDS will not come, even in old scheme as well as in new scheme. But if your income is more than 5 lakhs and if you have choose the old scheme, then in that case, even after considering all the deduction, your income is more than 5 lakhs, then in that case, TDS will be applicable, and that will be deducted by the organization because they have to mandatory comply to all the compliances. But if you have chosen new scheme, in new scheme, if the net income is up to 7 lakhs, then it is exempt. But in new scheme, you will not be eligible for any deductions as well as allowance exemption except 80 CCD2, that is NPS. Standard deduction is now available for both the schemes.
Thank you, Vishal. I hope that answers the question for you, Preeti. Also, audience, I see a lot of questions coming in. So please do keep this flow going because we have a dedicated time of still 15 minutes to take all your questions. So please do not hesitate and put in your questions. Moving on to the next question from Ramesh Ravindranath. What are the scenarios for EPF exemption for employees where they would not want to contribute?
So if the employee do not want to contribute, either they should join the organization which is not registered under EPF. Because if the organization is registered under EPF, then they would definitely be deducting the PF from your salary if your gross minus HR is less than 15,000. And suppose if in previous organization you already have PF, and now in this organization you do not have the organization is not registered in PF, then you have to first withdraw the PF and then you can join the organization because the organization is not registered in PF. So if they do not withdraw the PF, then the organization has to deduct PF, and for deducting the PF, the organization has to register for PF also.
Sure. Thank you, Vishal. Moving on to the next question. It's if you can please elaborate more on bonuses. What's the salary range for the same?
So in that case, for bonuses, the basic plus DA should be less than 21,000. Bonus is applicable on basic plus DA. If basic plus DA is less than 21,000, then we need to mandatorily include statutory bonus component in that.
Okay, got it. Next question is from Swati Kulkarni. Her question is regarding gratuity payment. She wanted to understand and know if an employee is eligible for gratuity payment if he has completed 4.6 years in organization.
So there is in gratuity, there is one point that if the employee has completed in total 473 days, then in that case, they are eligible for gratuity. So if there is 4 years and 6 months, so it is, I think, less than 473 days. So they would not be eligible for gratuity. Only if they have crossed 473 days, then gratuity is eligible.
So I also have a follow-up question coming in. So
Yeah.
473 days, as in since the joining of their date, they have completed, they've been in the organization for 473 days?
No, sorry, it is 4 years and 273 days.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
4
so
years and
6
2.
months. Yeah, so if it is 4 years and 6 months, then they will be eligible for gratuity because it is 4 years and 180 days. So in Gratuity Act, it is mentioned that if it is 4 years and 273 days, then gratuity is eligible.
Almost closer to 5 years, you do have to
Yes,
complete.
yes. And if it is 5 years and 5 months, then we need to consider only 5 years. And if it is 5 years and 7 months, then 6 years.
Okay, okay. So there is a little like benefit there if
Yeah.
if you're completing 5 years, 7 months. So actually, the next question from Preeti is like a sub question to that only. If you could shed light on gratuity benefits for employees.
So most of the organization do that they consider a part of CTC. Gratuity would be the part of CTC. They would create a gratuity trust, and every month they would the organization would contribute to that much amount to the trust till the 5 years are not completed and or till the employee leaves the organization. If employee leaves the organization before 5 years, then that trust amount he will not be eligible to get the gratuity. But if he has completed the 5 years, then he will get a check from that trust itself, directly from that trust.
Okay. Thank you, Vishal. The next question is from Anand, but I feel like it's an incomplete question. Anand, if you could maybe add in more points. The question is, I have a doubt regarding the contractual employee. But what doubt is, if you could just elaborate more, we'll take that up. Moving on in the meantime to the next question from Swati. I think you have already answered this, but if you can take it up,
So
Vishal.
I would add in case of contractual employee that suppose I have said that if the employee is not on the payroll, but suppose if the employee is on payroll and those employees are on contract with other organization and doing full-time work there, then in that case PF and ESIC is mandatory to be deducted, and we have to show the PF and ESIC challan to that organization where the employees are working. But if they are not on the payroll and they are on a specific contract that means for they are a trainee for that for 1 year or something like that, then PF and ESIC would not be there.
I hope that clears the question for you, Anand. Moving on to the next question, you've already answered, but if you just want to, add more, she wants to know leave encashment. Is it mandatory to an organization to encash leaves?
Yes, it is mandatory. On
Okay.
paid leaves, we need to encash the leave encashment.
Got it. Next question is from Satish Kumar. During maternity leave, whether we should cover PF or not?
So during the maternity leave, it is mentioned in the act that when the female employees are on maternity leave, they are eligible for full pay for 31 days or 30 days. So in that, whatever the compliances that we need to do, that we need to deduct the PF, ESIC, all that needs to be done and needs to be paid to the employees.
Got it.
Net salary to be credited in the employee's account.
Okay. Next question is from Guman. Is there any provision for medical leave, and how many medical leave employee can avail?
So under the medical leave, there are, I think, as per the act, there is no provision for medical leave, but there are only paid leaves. That is, an organization should give the paid leaves to the employees, and there is sick leaves and compensatory leaves to the employees. So total paid leaves should be 14, and sick leaves, the combine of sick leaves and compensatory leaves should be 7 as per the act. So in total, it should be 21 days.
Okay.
So
Moving
medical
on.
leaves will come under sick leaves. So it would be 7 days.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. Will contractual employees be eligible for bonuses or not?
Yeah, we need to treat contractual employees same as the normal employees. If they are working on contract in another organization, then in that case, if the basic plus DA is less than 21,000, they are eligible for bonus.
Okay. Next question from Gopal. If employee monthly earning is zero due to leave without pay, which we should deduct labor welfare deduction or not?
Yes, we should deduct if employee is bearing the labor welfare, the employer is bearing the labor welfare, then in that case you have to pay employer and employee both. But if the LWP is zero and there is no salary going to the employee, then in that case there is no need to consider that employee under labor welfare for that particular month.
Okay. Next question is from Sachin. What is the common increment policy in India, if there is any?
So there is no common increment policy. It is based on the performance. So suppose employee has performed really well, then increment may go up. Generally, organizations gives the increment up to 8 to 10% normally, and if the performance is good, then it may go up.
Next question is, could you please assist us in gaining a better understanding of the Flexi Benefit Plan and elucidate its advantages for employees?
Sorry, I didn't get what is flexi benefit.
I think she's talking about flexible benefit plan. Okay, if this is an anonymous attendee, so if you could please add in more, background to this question, we will take them up. I'll, in the meantime, move on to the next question. It's a follow-up question from Nagendra. If I'm not an EPS member at the time of first employment, I'm sure department will not accept EPS scheme even though I'm eligible in next employment. Please clarify if that be the case.
Yeah, so if you are not an EPS employee, then there would not be an EPS contribution in next employment also. Because for EPS contribution in next employment, it is necessary to have a gross minus HRS salary less than 15,000. So suppose in previous employment you already have the EPS, then it will go in EPS in next organization also. But if you do not have EPS contribution in previous organization, and if your gross minus HRA is more than 15,000, then in this organization also it won't go in EPS.
Got it. I hope that answers the question. Moving on to the next question from Swati. It's regarding leaves. Are there any leaves to female employees in case of miscarriage?
No, there is no provision regarding that.
Got it. So there is some responses we have received from flexible benefit plans, as an example, NPS, LT, etc. So
Okay,
if you could, yeah.
So that I have discussed in the presentation that NPS is one of the retirement benefit plan which employee should higher salaried employees should opt with, because in NPS they can get many deductions. For example, if employee contributes under section 80 CCD 1B, then employee will get deduction of rupees 50,000 over and above 80C. So in total, employee will get 2 lakh deduction. And if there is also employer contribution in NPS, that is 10 per maximum 10% of basic, then they will get more deduction. That is over and above 1 lakh 50, 10% of employer contribution, as well as that 50,000 which employee himself has contributed. So it is a very good plan, and even after the retirement, the employee can withdraw 60% of the total amount. If the contribution is up to 5 lakhs, in total 5 lakhs, then employee can withdraw whole amount. Otherwise, employee can withdraw 60% of the amount.
Got it. I hope that answers the question for you. So yeah, that was all the questions we had. There are no more questions, and I'm so very happy that we were able to take all the questions, more than 30 questions we received. So thank you so much, Vishal, for all the insights that you have shared with us. It has, I'm sure, immensely helped our attendees today. And thanks to our attendees as well to make it very engaging with all your questions. And it's a learning curve for all of us here. So I hope that we see the same level of active participation in the next webinar as well. And thank you so much for taking out the time. What I will quickly do, in case you still have more questions and you want to know more, or you want to connect with more more experts, there is a community that we have, Grey Tribe community, where industry experts are there, and you can ask your questions related to all things HR, compliance, taxes there, and they will be able to help you with your responses and insights. So there's a URL which we have shared on the screen. You can sign up through that. You can always visit our website also, and you will see a Grey Tribe community link there too. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining in, and especially Vishal for your very insightful presentation as well. That had really helped us understand, and we were talking about navigating through the payroll compliances. That really did help. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Also, attendees, as promised, we will share the recording of this webinar soon with you. Also, you can always go back to our YouTube channel, greytHR official YouTube channel, and check out the recording there. We have a previous recording of these webinars as well, so you can always go and check it there. In case you still have any more questions, please feel free to write to me on my given email ID, rakhigotham@greytip.com, and we will be happy to take your questions. I see some good response feedback coming in from the audience in the Q&A chat, that it was a very insightful session. Thanks to both of you. Thanks to you, attendee, for joining, and we hope to see you next time as well. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you.